25th day of our program, 50 Days with God.
You've probably heard about the seal of God in Revelation 7, but what actually is it?
Well, stay with us and figure out and find out more about this program and about this specific topic being the seal of God in Revelation.
Our today's topic is about the seal of God in Revelation. We're going to talk about the seal, a seal or a mark. A mark or a seal is used to refer to someone who has authority, or a mark is a way or a device to distinguish or to make a difference, a property that belongs to someone and to you, or to identify that this thing belongs to this and this, or this thing is this. So today we're going to speak about the seal of God. When we speak about a seal, always we think about someone who has authority. Someone who has an authority, a king or a chief or a headman should have a seal. Whenever he writes his letters, whenever he makes some decrees or some covenants or agreements, they should have a seal, so that it will show under whose authority this agreement or covenant was made. So today we are going to speak about the seal of God. When we read in the book of Daniel 6 verse 8, it says, "Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it be not changed," which means a king has authority, or a chief, or the one in high position has authority after a decree is made or a covenant to sign, to put a sign or a mark. It shows that that thing stands forever and it cannot be changed. In the same way, when we talk of God, the seal of God or the seal of a king should have three things. These three things: it should have his name, it should have his title, it should have his name, his title, his territory. These three things should be there. For example, as I said already, it should have his title, it should have his authority and territory. When we read in the book of Isaiah 8 verse 16, it says, "Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples." That is in Isaiah chapter 8 verse 16, which means the seal of God, for us to know it should be found in his laws or commandments, because the one who should have a seal should be a commandment giver or should be a law giver. So the seal of God should be found among one of his commandments or in his law, according to Isaiah chapter 8 verse 16. For example, when you read Exodus chapter 20 verse 3, it says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." That is commandment number 1. This one, it doesn't show whose law this belongs to. It only says, "Thou shalt not have other gods beside me." There are many gods in the world, but a commandment should give us a clear understanding to know who has given this law, who has given this command. So according to commandment number 1, we don't see who is the lawgiver. So if we come also to other commandments, whether it's the second, whether it's the third, it doesn't show us who is the commandment giver. Meaning, if we don't know who is the commandment giver, we don't know who has the authority, we don't know who is supposed to bind or put a mark or a seal. Now, as we continue, we'll find that when we come to Exodus 20, verse 8 to 11, this will give a difference. We will understand something in Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 to 11. Let us listen carefully. It says here, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maiden servant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. When we look at this commandment, it bears the name of God, that is Jehovah. Also, it shows or it gives us understanding of his authority. Also, it gives us an understanding to know where he lives or his territory, where he's ruling. So the Bible says here, Jehovah, the creator of the universe, which means according to this commandment, fourth commandment, now we can now understand all the other commandments that they were given by God, the creator, the one who ruleth in the universe. So, which means the seal of God is found on the fourth commandment, that is in Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 to 11. As we continue, when we read in the book of Exodus chapter 31, verse 17, it says here, it is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day he rested and was refreshed. In this sense, when we look at it, we have read on the previous verse that for God in 6 days he created the heaven and the earth. Now God says it is a sign, which means the Sabbath, which is spoken in command number 4, God says it is his sign, it is his mark, which means if we worship the God who created heaven and earth, if we praise truly in a genuine way the God who created heaven and earth, we should keep the Sabbath. Because it is a sign. When we keep the Sabbath, we agree, we acknowledge that this is God who created heaven and earth. He has a right to be worshipped when we keep the Sabbath. And God himself, when we keep the Sabbath, in other words, when we keep the Sabbath, we are taking the mark of God. And when God looks at us or looks at you, he says, these are my people who worship me. Because by keeping the Sabbath, we acknowledge that God is the creator of heaven and earth. As we go forward, we'll find that according to Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 20, it says here, and hallow my Sabbath, and they shall be a sign between me and you. that ye may know that I am the Lord your God. Which means, according also to Exodus chapter 31, verse 13, verily my Sabbath shall ye keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you. When we look at this, for us to know the creator of heaven and earth, we are called to keep the Sabbath. You will agree with me, today in this world, there are many holidays. For example, there are Easter holidays, there are Christmas holidays, there is a May Day which they call Workers' Day or World Day. When we rest on those holidays, we acknowledge or we agree that at a certain time there was a certain event that took place. By keeping holiday of a certain event which once took place, we agree or we worship or we uphold, we agree with what happened and we support that. Which means also, when we keep the Sabbath, which God, after creating everything, He rested on that day. So when we keep the Sabbath, the seventh day, we acknowledge that He is the creator of heaven and earth. He should be worshipped. In turn, when we keep the Sabbath, God places His mark upon us, because it makes Him see that these are my people, because they keep my holiday. Because you cannot keep a holiday of a certain country. Each country has got its own country. In other countries, there is what we call Heroes' Day. In other countries, there is what we call Festival Day or whatever. It means during that time, by then, there is something that took place, or there is something which takes place every year or yearly. You cannot keep the holiday of another country because you don't know what happened in that place. But the people of that country, they keep that holiday because they understand. Even you, if you visit that country, the moment that day comes, you are required also to rest on that day, to close your business on that day, because that country rests on that day or acknowledges that day as a day which commemorates or which refers to a certain event that took place. The same way, when we keep the Sabbath, we show that we worship the creator of heaven and the earth. Also, when we read in Revelation chapter 7, verse 1 to 4, it says here, and after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 wings of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and they were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of God. Which means, according to this, God seals or marks His children. And during the time of placing the mark or the seal upon His children, there should be no disturbance, because the command is given to those angels that sees about the affairs of this planet, that control the winds, meaning anything that can blow and disturb the sealing work. These angels, they should keep peace till the work of sealing is done, which means God take it as a special thing to mark his subjects. Because according to this, he says, hold on, that no disturbance should take place till we have sealed the servants of God. So according to this, when you read also in Revelation 14 verse 1, it speaks about the future. It speaks about the future. After Revelation chapter 7, Revelation 14 says, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. John looks ahead after Revelation chapter 7. He looks ahead and he sees those who were already sealed, having the mark of God. Which means those who want to be sealed, who expect God to seal them, should know the mark of God or the seal of God. And this seal is the Sabbath. When they know the Sabbath, they should not only know the Sabbath, but they should keep it. They should uphold it. In this way, they acknowledge that God is the creator of heaven and earth. In turn, God acknowledges that these are my children. Also, when we continue, you will find that in Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, it tells us something. It says here, according to Revelation 13, verse 16, and he causeth all, both small, great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their forehead, right hand, and in their foreheads. When we look at this, beside the mark of God, beside the seal of God, there is another seal. Which means, while God is sealing his people, the devil also is sealing his people. Which means, Satan forces people or compels people to keep another day, to uphold another day other than the day which God gave or established. The Bible says God did not rest on any other day, but he rested on the seventh day, which we call it today Saturday. And that seventh day, God says it is the Sabbath, and he set it apart. Any other day which a person acknowledges or keeps or he rests on other than the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, which means that person acknowledges another God as the creator, and which means that person is giving a right of worship to another God. Yet God said, you shall have no other gods before me. Which means, if you understand about the Sabbath, the fourth commandment, if you keep the Sabbath, if all people could keep the Sabbath or know the Sabbath, no person could worship another God other than the God who created the heaven and the earth. Even when you read Mark, in the book of Mark chapter 2, verse 27 and 28, it reads in this way. Mark chapter 2, verse 27 and 28. It gives us an understanding. It says here, and he said unto them, the Sabbath was meant for men, and not men for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. According to this, it shows that there are some benefits in keeping the Sabbath. Because Christ himself says, the Sabbath was made for men, for the good of men, for the happiness of men, for the sanctification of men, for eternal benefits of men. And he says, even the Son of Man, meaning Jesus, the Son of God, is Lord also of the Sabbath. Which means, Jesus Christ says, the Sabbath is his. So if the Sabbath belongs to him, and we will love Jesus, we are to keep the Sabbath. And when we keep the Sabbath, Jesus in turn will say, these are my people. There is a time also when he was giving a sermon in the mount, when he was speaking about the signs of his second coming. He even told his disciples to pray that when tribulation comes, it should not be in winter and on the Sabbath. Which means the people of God, the people who are searching to know about true God, should keep the Sabbath, should start to know about the seventh day. Because when you read about the fourth commandment, it says, you shall not do any work on the seventh day. You, your family, your servants, and everything that is in your house should do no work. Why? For in 6 days God created heaven and earth, and everything in it. Then he rested. Let us read our last verse. That is Genesis chapter 2. Genesis chapter 2. It says here, thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created. When you look into this, you find that from the very beginning, when God was creating, the Sabbath was part of creation. Which means also, the Sabbath is part of salvation, redemption. Because Christ says, when the time comes for tribulation, when you shall be chased from Jerusalem, pray that it should not be on Sabbath. Meaning, is part of a redemption. Also, when he teaches us that if you love me, keep my commandments, which means the Sabbath is part of the commandments. But more important about this commandment is that it has the mark or the seal of God. Therefore, let's welcome the Sabbath so that God will sanctify and seal us. When we are marked, the Bible says, we don't know yet what we shall be, but when he shall appear, we shall be like him, because we shall see him as he is. So when we keep the commandments, when we keep the Sabbath, the seventh day, God will place his seal upon our foreheads. So when he appears, he will call his sheep, meaning those who worshipped him, those who kept his commandments. God bless you.
If we want to live eternally, it is absolutely important that we receive the seal of God.
Join us again next time for another very important message in the next video, where we're talking about another fascinating topic entitled Characteristics of the Triumphant People According to Revelation.
Continue watching this program every single day of this interesting programs that we have of 50 Days with God.
Pharyngitis is a common problem that causes more than 15 million visits to the doctor every single year in the United States. 90% of adults and 60 to 80% of children are viral. Streptococcus pyogenes is one of the most common bacteria. The transmission time is between 2 and 5 days and is more common between winter and early spring. If you are sneezing, a runny nose, or sore throat, it's a high probability that you have pharyngitis. But also, if you have conjunctivitis, epidemic your tonsils, if you have coryza, hoarseness, probably it's viral. But if you have a strong headache and you feel nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, can be bacterial. I will share with you some home recommendations. Drinking of liquids, rest. You also can make gargles with salty warm water. To do it, you will need 8 ounces of warm water and a teaspoon of salt. Mix it and make gargles. Also, you can do it with lemon. For that, you will need the 8 ounces of warm water, 4 ounces of lemon juice, and honey to taste. Also, you can try with encino tea. For this, you will need 2 pints of boiling water, a tablespoon of encino leaves, 3 tablespoons of fenugreek, and lemon to taste. In a teapot, you will put the boiling water, fenugreek, and encino leaves. Let it boil for 2 minutes, turn off the heat, and with a strainer, strain the liquid, add the honey, and drink. And if you want to do a poultice, you can also do it with red onion, 3 tablespoons of fenugreek, and honey. You can do it 2 times a day. I hope that this can be helpful for you.
Throat inflammation or a sore throat is something that I'm sure none of us like to have.
Follow advice shared today and find out how to alleviate the pain in the throat.
We hope to see you in the next video for another health message about natural cough treatments. Join us next time. We hope to see you there.